Speaker, respected Chair, and the cultured souls present in this August House. So I'll be speaking on an outline of Indian knowledge system through the lens of Sri Aurobindo. But before I speak, let me clarify. Neither am I a scholar, nor do I possess scholarship, nor am I an original thinker. Why then this audacity on my part? I have a sense of offering anything and everything at the lotus feet of the Supreme Divine Mother. And this sense of surrender is the sole source of my strength and audacity. So today's my speech will be a sort of compilations from the writings of Sri Aurobindo and many of his disciples. As I have already told you, neither am I an original thinker. So an outline of Indian knowledge system. Let me first antagonize all of you. Let me first make you angry with me. If I say, teacher spoils everything, not anything. I am not using the word anything. I am using the word everything. Teacher spoils everything by thinking that he is teaching. Will you not be angry with me? Crores of teachers are engaged in teaching jobs, and here a small person, see his audacity, he is saying, teacher spoils everything, not even anything. Teacher spoils everything by thinking he is teaching. I'm sure you are really angry with me, because a small person like me, if I have the audacity to utter that teacher spoils not anything, but everything, by thinking that he or she is teaching. But let me answer. I'm asking you, or the modern pedagogy has to answer. Modern pedagogy has to answer. Who taught and trained up Ekolobya? Ekolobya was refused by his Guru Dronacharya. We all know. Ekolobya was refused to be trained up by his Guru Dronacharya. Yet Ekolobya became a great archer, even greater than Arjuna. Who trained up Ekolobya? Modern education system across the globe has to answer us. Now perhaps your anguish could be reduced to a little extent against me, to a little extent. But let me also clarify, such a big statement cannot be uttered by a man, small people like me. It was uttered none other than by Swami Vivekananda himself. Vivekananda said, teacher spoils everything by thinking that he or she is teaching. Then who is teaching us? The first knowledge about India. And in my opinion, it is the whole knowledge about India. I do not know whether NEP 2020 has said this thing or not, but at least one educational policy document has said this thing. I will be mentioning. The first knowledge about India, the first knowledge about Indian knowledge system, or in my opinion, it is the primary knowledge on India. Because I will be putting here very orthodox and core idea about Indian thought. The basic core idea of Indian thought, without compromising with any modern thought. I will not compromise with any modern thought. I'll be here speaking only the core of Indian knowledge. Core of Indian knowledge. Because Vivekananda says, why he says, teacher spoils everything by thinking that he or she is teaching. Because there is only one teacher in this world. Whether for chemistry, whether for physics, whether for civil engineering, whether for arts, whether for music, whether for drama, whether for literature, for the whole 700 crores people of India, people of the globe, there is only one teacher. And all the other teachers are the representatives of that one teacher. And that teacher we are carrying within ourselves. That is the first knowledge about India. That is the first knowledge about India. Our own soul is our only teacher. Our soul is our only teacher. India says, soul is our only soul, only teacher. And the external teachers are the pratibhu, are the representatives of that inner soul. Of that inner soul. And that is why Vivekananda said, teacher spoils everything by thinking that he is teaching. All your teachings, all encyclopedia, all textbooks, all seminars, all discussions are but supports. Understanding has to take place from within. Whether you are imparting knowledge about chemistry, whether you are imparting knowledge about physics, understanding has to take place, no other alternative. Understanding has to take place from within. So, pedagogy is essentially an inward-outward process, not outward-inward process. So this is the first knowledge about India. That everything is within us. Everything. Quality, power, potentiality, our svabhava, our sadharma, my destiny, my mission, my svabhava, my quality, my power, my knowledge, my guru, everything is within me. Everything is within me. You may deny it because it is said by India. But let me give an example. UNESCO has published 2 documents during last century on education. You can search through Google. First one was published by 1972 and chairman was Edgar Farr. And I have a reason why I am mentioning the name of the chairman, because he is, at least from name, you can guess he is not an Indian. Edgar Farr was the chairman. And it was published in the year 1972. And the last policy document published by UNESCO, published in the year 1996 under the chairmanship of Jacques Delors. Also not an Indian. Also not an Indian. The title of the 72 document was Learning to Be. Learning to be, not learning to acquire knowledge. 72 policy document published by UNESCO. Learning to be. And in 1996, Jacques Delors modified 72 document. In place of learning to be, his title was Learning the Treasure Within. Who has now said? UNESCO had said, just 27 years earlier. Just 27 years ago, even before NEP 2020, UNESCO has said that learning the treasure within. Treasure is not in the encyclopedia. Treasure is not in the textbook. Treasure is within. UNESCO has said, you can verify. But I must confess The committee headed by Jacques Delors included one Indian. I must say his name. And he was Dr. Karan Singh, an ardent devotee of Maharishi Sri Aurobindo. In fact, his doctorate was on Sri Aurobindo's nationalism. And that is why this is the first knowledge about India now recognized by UNESCO, that learning treasure within. Second, Indian knowledge system. It has three words. One is Indian, second one is knowledge, third one is system. System means pedagogy. Already Professor Shukla has deliberated many things about pedagogy. But what is IKS? Together, what is IKS? How we can define IKS or PKS or Bharatiya Gyan Parampara or Indian knowledge system? If you are asked at the end of the day, what is Indian knowledge system? How we can define Indian knowledge system? Is it different from Indology? Not much difference. Indology was the academic study about India. Indology was the academic study of the India by the Westerners. Then what is IKS? What is IKS? IKS is a generic name. IKS is a generic name. Generic name for what? The IKS is a generic phrase that covers practically everything about India. That practically covers everything about India. Whether art, whether sculpture, whether architecture, whether pedagogy, whether education, whether spirituality, whether vision of man, whether cosmology, anything practically about India can be defined by one generic phrase, that is the Indian knowledge system. So this is the first definition. What is meant by IKS? And it has been defined by B. Mahadevan, Binayak Rajat Bhatt, and Nagendra Pavana RN in their book, Introduction to Indian Knowledge System, Concept and Application. And they continue. For a nation, and it's a very, very huge challenge to define IKS. What is IKS? Why? Why it is very, very complex and very, very difficult? A huge challenge? Because for a nation with more than 5,000 years of recorded history, 5,000 years of recorded history, unrecorded it could be more also. Recorded 5,000 years of recorded history, abundant cultural and archaeological artifacts, literature and social and community practices. In India, there are thousands of community practices. Defining what constitutes Indian knowledge is itself a huge challenge. Because literature, culture, social practices, historical evidence, and other such challenges, other such knowledge assets available in all Indian languages, including Manipuri, Assamese, Bangla, Karvi, Tamil, including all languages. In all Indian languages, even in dialects, and geographical region will all technically fall under the ambit of IKS. So all dialects, all languages, all social practices, all these geographical regions of this vast land called India will fall technically under the ambit of IKS. Not only geographical region, there is another dimension to it. And what is that dimension? Other aspect is the time dimension. Knowledge is continuously synthesized by every society. Knowledge assets available in India from the prehistoric time to the current day. And Maharishi says, India of the ages is not dead. India of the ages is not dead. So, but arguably, we all know IPS can evoke different meanings to different stakeholders. I admit. But it is, I think it is more or less, we can agree on this. What is IPS? IPS can be defined as a generic phrase that practically covers everything about India. So it has three aspects. One is India, second one is knowledge, and third one is system. System means methodology, that is to say pedagogy. So now, what is India? What is India? Is it only a geographical land? What is India? What is India? The mother, who was she? Who is she? The mother, the spiritual collaborator of Sri Aurobindo, whom we regard as the incarnation of the Supreme Divine Mother, says about India. What she says, let me quote. India is not the art. India is not the art, rivers and mountains of this land. Then what is India? India is not the rivers, mountains, art of this land. Neither is it a collective name for the inhabitants of this country. Then what is India? Then what is India? Mother says, India is a living being. India is a living being. What type of living? India is a living being, as much living as, say, Shiva. As Shiva is living, India is also living. The India is a goddess, as Shiva is a god. That is the only difference. India is a goddess, as Shiva is God. If she likes, Mother dares to say, if she likes, she means India. If India likes, she can manifest in human form. She can manifest in human form. India can manifest. Let me quote now Sri Aurobindo, what he says. Sri Aurobindo says, Mother India is not a piece of art. Mother India is not a piece of art. Then what it is? She is a power. She is a Shakti. She is a power. She is a Shakti. A Godhead. A Godhead. For all nations have such a Devi. For all nations, not only India. All nations have such a Devi supporting their separate existence and keeping it in being. As I said you, soul is the central concept of Indian knowledge system, soul. If you eliminate soul from all your discourse, India ceases to exist. Whether it is mundane knowledge or spiritual knowledge, if you eliminate the concept of soul, India ceases to exist. So soul, the concept of soul is the central concept of Indian knowledge system. If you eliminate the concept of soul, India ceases to exist. And I am speaking of undivided India, Akhanda Bharatavarsha, because Mother says the soul of India is one and indivisible. Soul cannot be divided. You can have political system of different political system of governance. But soul of India is one and indivisible. Soul of India is one and indivisible. India is conscious of her mission in the world. She is waiting for the exterior means of manifestation. And that is why Sri Aurobindo, in his 1947 15th August message, categorically promised that partition will go. Whether today or tomorrow, partition will go. He promised, not today, 14th August 1947, and the message was broadcast by Tiruchirappalli radio station before Jawaharlal Nehru's famous speech, Tries with Destiny. Sri Aurobindo's message was broadcast before Nehru's message. And in that message, Maharishi promised the partition will go. Whether today or tomorrow, and that is why Mother says the soul of India is one and indivisible. India is conscious of her mission in the world. She is waiting for the exterior means of manifestation. So, I have covered the one aspect of the three aspects of IPS, India. What is India? Indian, or what is India? But I will be speaking again on India. What is Indian spirit? But first let me quote three paragraphs from a very small book, and I think all your questions will be answered. It's a very small book. Its title is The Brain of India, written by Maharishi Sri Aurobindo. It contains very 6 small articles, but pregnant with, from one sentence you can write one book. It's it's a 6 article containing only 18 pages. 6 article. Let me quote 3 passages. Three passages from this Brain of India. 3 passages only. Maharishi asks, what was the secret of that gigantic intellectuality? What was the secret of that gigantic intellectuality, spirituality, and superhuman moral force which we see pulsating in the Ramayana and Mahabharata, in the ancient philosophy, in the supreme poetry, art, sculpture, and architecture of India? What was the secret behind? What was at the basis of the incomparable public works and engineering achievements, the opulent and exquisite industries, the great triumphs of science, scholarship, jurisprudence, logic, metaphysics, the unique social structure? What was the secret behind? What supported the heroism and self-abandonment of the Kshatriya, the Sikh, and the Rajput? The unconquerable national vitality and endurance. What was it that stood behind that civilization second to none, in the massiveness of its outlines or the perfection of its detail? What was the secret behind? Then Maharishi says, without a great and unique discipline, involving a perfect education of soul and mind, let me repeat, perfect education of soul and mind, a result so immense and persistent would have been impossible. Then he says, it would be an error to look for the secret of Aryan success in the details of the instruction given in the old ashrams and universities. He was not caring about the instructions. He was focusing on the pedagogy adopted by those ashrams, not about the instruction. Instruction was not a primary thing, as Shukla has pointed out already. So, in the details of the instruction given in the old ashrams and universities, so far as they have come down to us, we must know what was the principle and basis on which the details were founded. What was that principle? We shall find the secret of their success. We shall find the secret of their success in a profound knowledge of human psychology. The second knowledge about India, whole Indian knowledge system was based or is based on human psychology, which modern pedagogy does not think as necessary. For the modern education system, for the modern scholarship, psychology is only one of the subjects. But Maharishi says, we must know what was the principle and basis on which the details were founded. We shall find the secret of their success in a profound knowledge of human psychology. So, human psychological knowledge about human psychology was another primary component of Indian knowledge system. And its subtle application, not only academic psychological aspect, its subtle application of human psychology to the methods of intellectual training and instruction. So human psychology was combined with the pedagogy. Pedagogy was based on human psychology. Another secret of great Aryan success. Then Maharishi says, perhaps you may not like if I use a traditional word. But what is that thing? I will be explaining later on. Maharishi says, at the basis of all Aryan system was the all-important discipline of Brahmacharya. But Brahmacharya is an old traditional word. But what is that, Brahmacharya? I'll be explaining later on. The whole secret, the Brahmacharya was the secret. Brahmacharya was the secret. And what was that Brahmacharya? I'll be explaining later on. Rather, I'll be quoting Maharishi. But first, Maharishi says, the first necessity of any educational pedagogy, the first necessity for the building up of a great intellectual superstructure. Why it is needed? A great intellectual superstructure? Why it is needed? Is to provide a foundation strong enough to bear it. We need a strong foundation. Strong foundation. Why? To bear it. To bear it means a great intellectual superstructure. And for that, what we need? A great foundation strong enough. Then Maharishi says, those system of education which start from an insufficient knowledge of man. Insufficient knowledge of man. We are not caring about knowledge of man. We are caring about knowledge of physics, knowledge of chemistry, knowledge of engineering. We do not care about knowledge of man. But whole Indian knowledge system was based on knowledge of man. And that is why Maharishi says, those system of education which start from an insufficient knowledge of man, think they have provided a satisfactory foundation. Think when they have supplied the student with a large or well-selected mass of information on the various subjects which comprise the best part of human culture at the time. But school gives the materials only. It is for the student to use them. This is the formula. Then what is the flaw of modern educational pedagogy? Then Maharishi says, the error here is fundamental. All universities of the world, they are committing one fundamental error. And what is that? Maharishi's categorical statement, the information cannot be the foundation of intelligence. Information cannot be the foundation of intelligence. It can only be part of the material, but cannot be the foundation of intelligence, out of which the knower builds knowledge. the starting point, the nucleus of fresh discovery and endless creation. Then you will be surprised. Then Maharishi says, an education that confines itself to imparting knowledge is no education. So education has to give something more than knowledge also. So here, two categorical statements. Information cannot be the foundation of intelligence, and an education that confines itself to imparting knowledge is no education. Then what is education? Then what is education? Maharishi says, the various faculties of memory, judgment, imagination, perception, reasoning, which build the edifice of thought and knowledge for the knower, must not only be equipped with their feet and sufficient tools and materials, but trained to bring fresh materials. So what is important? Not knowledge, not information. Then what is important? Various faculties of memory, faculties of judgment, faculties of reasoning, faculties of imagination, faculties of perception, faculties of reasoning has to be trained up and equipped and use more skillfully those of which they are in possession already. So, and the foundation of the structure they have to build, they have to means the student, those faculties, the faculties of memory, faculties of imagination, faculties of reasoning, perception. The foundation of the structure they have to build can only be the provision of a fund of force and energy. So cultivation of faculties is nothing but providing a force or energy. That is the another most important thing about pedagogy. So cultivation of faculties means providing a force and energy. Provision of a fund of force and energy, sufficient to bear the demands of a continually growing activity. Then of the memory, judgment, and creative power. But then Maharishi asks a question. Where is the energy to be found? Where is the energy to be found? Can it be found in encyclopedia? Can it be found in seminars? Can it be found in workshop? Can it be found in textbook? Where is that energy to be found? And is it possible without energy? But the modern education system does not know all these things. Indian knowledge system knows things. And it is the secret behind Aryan success, incomparable success. And that is the brain of India. And that is why the title of the book is Brain of India. How it was manufactured or prepared. Then Maharishi says, the ancient Aryan knew. Again, psychology of man, sufficient knowledge of man. So, a pedagogy, knowledge, education has to start with the knowledge of man, with the psychology of man. No alternative. An education which is initiated without sufficient knowledge of man, it is just sitting. It is just hypocrisy. It is exploitation against students. But the question remains, where from that energy will be found? Where is the source? Where is the source? I have already given you the answer. Everything is within me. All energy available in the world is also within me. This is another knowledge about India. India says, Indian knowledge system. The whole universe is macrocosm and we are microcosm. That is the only difference. Let me quote, all powers which is available in nature, in physical universe, we are the reservoir. But in Indian language, it is used as we are the adhara, we are the vessel, we are the instrument, we are the adhara, we are the adhara. So Maharishi continues, let me quote, the ancient Aryans knew, but modern pedagogy, modern scientific world does not know. Modern scientific world, modern logical world, scientific-minded people does not know. But the ancient Aryans knew that man was not separate from the universe. That is the another knowledge, Indian knowledge. Man was not separate from the world. When Indian rishis uttered Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, Srinnanta Visya Amritasya Putra, it was not intellectual jugglery. It was not ethics. It was not morality. It was not kind-heartedness. It was a truth. Because whole universe is interconnected. I am part of the whole universe. Gita says, who am I? Mama eva angsha sanatana. In verse number 7, chapter number 15, Gita says, Krishna says, who are man? My portion eternal. My portion eternal. Another knowledge of India. My portion eternal. Mama eva angsha sanatana. My portion eternal. So, ancient Aryans knew that man was not separate from the universe, but only a homogeneous part of it. As I have already told you, whole universe is called macrocosm. We are microcosm. What is microcosm? Microcosm means small universe. Macrocosm means the whole universe. I am the small universe. I am the small universe. This is another knowledge about India. Another knowledge India has discovered. Rather, I should say, India has discovered. And Maharishi gives a metaphor here. Beautiful metaphor. As a wave is part of the ocean. Don't you think wave is part of the ocean? Likewise, we are part of the whole universe. As a wave, part of the ocean, I am part of the whole universe. So this is another knowledge about India. Then he says an infinite energy, not finite. An infinite energy, you can call it in Indian philosophical terminology, Prakriti, Shakti, Maya, whatever you like. But the English term is infinite energy. You may call it Prakriti, you may call it Shakti, you may call it Maya. Though there are some minute difference between Maya and Prakriti and Shakti. But basically they are Shakti. They are infinite energy. Pervades the world. This is another knowledge India has discovered. An infinite energy. And modern science has discovered a very insignificant portion of those infinite energy. Modern physics has. Infinite energy pervades the world. Modern physics, modern chemistry, information technology discovered only a very, very insignificant portion of that infinite energy. The whole world is immanent to it, infinite energy, and pours itself into every name and form. So that infinite energy which pervades the whole world, that infinite energy pours itself into every name and form. Every name means I am human being, man. And what is form? A hill, a river. So that infinite energy pours not only in form, but also in name also. It is within me also. And that is why UNESCO says learning the treasure within. Treasure within. Let's say, pours itself into every name and form, and the cloth, the plant, the insect, the animal, the man are in their phenomenal existence merely more or less efficient adharos of this energy. So what are we? We are efficient adharos. And what is the meaning of adharo? Vessel. Adharo is the vessel. We are the vessel of that infinite energy which pervades the whole world. So now perhaps you have some idea where that energy will be found. Energy will be found within my being. So then Maharishi gives another metaphor, very beautiful metaphor. I think you all possess motor vehicle, motor car. And in a motor car, there is a dynamo. And what is the function of that dynamo? The function of dynamo is to generate power, replenishment, generation, storing of powers. Exactly the same thing Maharishi says. We are each of us a dynamo, into which waves of that energy, waves of that infinite energy which pervades the whole world, have been generated and stored. Have been generated and stored, and are being perpetually conserved, used up and replenished. 5 things have been spoken. What are those 5 things? That infinite energy is being generated within me. That infinite energy is stored in me. That infinite energy is used up within me. It is being conserved, used up, and replenished also. Replenished also. Then Maharishi gives another bold statement. Another bold statement. He says, the same force, you are not a small ephemeral thing, man. You are the whole universe. And that is why India says, Aham Brahmasmi. I am the whole universe. So, the same force which moves in the star and the plant moves in us. Same force. We are portion eternal of the divine. We are not a mortal being only. We are portion eternal. We are microcosm. We are the adharo. We are the dynamo. So, and all our thought and action are merely its play. Play of what? Play of that infinite energy. Our thought, our action. And what that energy? The energy which pervades the whole world. And born of the complexity of its functionings. And man can increase his capacity as an adharo. But how? I am not here to explain the exact details of the discipline. There are thousands of disciplines in India. I am here to provoke your thought only. I am here only to provoke your thought. There are processes. There are processes by which man can increase his capacity as an adharo. Man can increase his capacity as adharo. There are other processes by which he can clear up obstruction. So there is one discipline by which I can increase that energy. Again, there is another discipline by which I can clear up obstructions. This is what is called Indian knowledge system. Thousands of disciplines. According to your Swabhava and Swadharma, you can choose anyone from them, if you wish. And the channel of communication between himself and the universal energy, by which he can clear up obstruction, that is to say, it is nothing but a channel. Those disciplines are nothing but a channel. Channel of what? the channel of communication between himself and the universal energy. All those processes are nothing but channel. Channel between what? Channel between himself and the universal energy. And bring greater and greater stores of it pouring into his soul and brain and body. I am not here to explain those disciplines. I am only provoking your thought. And then Maharishi says, this is the whole aim of evolution of man. And what is that aim? The continual improvement of the adhara. Adhara means vessel, we are vessel. Continual improvement of the adhara. An increase in quality, quantity and complexity of actions of informing energy. Informing energy means the energy which is descending into the being, is the whole aim of evolution. So we are to continually increase our energy. So this is the whole aim of evolution. And then Maharishi says that when that energy is the highest in kind, who is Siddha? Who is Siddha? Who is realized man? Who is realized man? Maharishi says, Sri Aurobindo says, when that energy is the highest in kind and the fullest in amount, of which the human adhara is capable, and the adhara itself is trained utterly to bear the inrush and play of the energy, then is man Siddha. Then is man Siddha, the fulfilled or perfect man. His evolution is over, and he has completed in the individual that utmost development which the mass of humanity is laboring towards through the ages. But what is that Brahmacharya? Then Maharishi says, if this theory is correct, whatever he is saying, if this theory be correct, the energy at the basis of operation of intelligence must be in ourselves. It cannot be borrowed from encyclopedia. We cannot borrow energy from encyclopedia, from textbook, from sastras. They are all helps. They are all supports. But energy has to be manifested from within. So if this theory be correct, the energy at the basis of the operation of intelligence must be in ourselves. And it must be capable of greater expansion and richer use to an extent practically unlimited. And this also must be a sound principle, that the more we can increase and enrich the energy, the greater will be the potential range, power and activity of the functions of our mind, and the consequent vigor of our intellectuality and the greatness of our achievement. But what is the procedure? So this was the first principle of which the ancient Aryans based their education. And one of the chief processes which they used for the increased storage of energy, and that process is called the Brahmacharya. Brahmacharya is nothing to do with morality, nothing to do with ethics. It is the storing of energy. The process is Brahmacharya. For the increased storage of energy was the practice of Brahmacharya. So this is the highest knowledge about India. Energy has to be preserved, energy has to be stored, energy has to be used up, energy has to be preserved, energy has to be increased. Because we are the vessels of the infinite energy which pervades the whole world. Now let me talk 3-4 few things about Indian knowledge system. But before that, let me think another thing about India. What is India? What is India then? What is called India? Because Indian knowledge system is practically, it's a generic phrase which covers practically about India. So What is India? Let me say, Indian spirit, Indian spirit, Indian spirit is composed of three things. Whole Indian knowledge system is composed of three things. And Maharishi asks one thing, let me quote first. Maharishi says, what was the ancient spirit and characteristic soul of India? We often speak of soul of India, but what is that soul? How it is composed of? What are its components? What are its components? Three things. First one is spirituality. Second one is vitality. Vitality means prana shakti. And third one is intellectuality. So these three things are the strength of India. Spirituality, that is adhyatmikata, adhyatma. The vitality, that is to say prana shakti. And third one is intellectuality. Then Maharishi, just let me, the harmony of the ancient Indian culture. Let me quote his one paragraph, very small paragraph. Maharishi says, does an ingrained and dominant spirituality, first thing, does an ingrained and dominant spirituality, number one. Number second, an inexhaustible vital creativeness, inexhaustible vital creativeness, and this gust of life, pran shakti, gust of life, and mediating between them. Who was mediating between that vitality and spirituality? Mediating between them a powerful, penetrating, and scrupulous intelligence combined of the rational, ethical, and aesthetic mind, each at a high intensity of action, created the harmony of the ancient Indian culture. So if you are asked, what is the soul of India? What is the spirit of India? Spirit of India is consisting of three components. One is spirituality, second one is vitality. Vitality means power of life, gust of life, life energy, vitality, prana shakti. And third one is a robust intellectuality. A robust intellectuality. Now let me tell you very specific points, 4 or 5 points, very specific. What is Indian knowledge system? What is its pedagogy? As already Shukla has said one thing, that Indian pedagogy is composed of three things. That is the Sravana, that is the Manana, and the Nididhyasana. If we translate it into English, Sravana, that is the hearing, is insufficient. Because you lecture in your class, but one student scores 30 marks, one scores 40, again some score 70%. Why? Are you doing favoritism? No. Because Sravana, hearing, is not sufficient. Hearing has to be followed by reflection. And reflection is a mental capacity, faculty that has to be developed. Not the supply of information. That reflecting faculty has to be developed. And even Sravana and Manana are together not sufficient. That has to be followed by Nididhyasana. What is Nididhyasana? Deep meditation. And why? I'll be explaining you. Why all these three parts are necessary. Sravana, Manana, and the Nididhyasana. Let me now tell you very small things. If you are asked, what are the three aspects of Indian knowledge system so far as the question of teaching is concerned? Teaching is concerned. These are all from Maharishi's quotations. What are the three components of teachings? What are the three weapons with you? Three weapons with you. There are three weapons with the teachers. First one is teaching. That is to providing instruction. But instruction is insufficient. Instruction has followed by dristanto. Instruction has followed by example. What you have spoken, you have to be a living example of that thing. Otherwise, your student will not listen to you. You have to be the living embodiment of what you are speaking. If you are advising your student, be honest. You have to be the living embodiment of honesty. And this example is a power with you. And the third one is presence. Presence. Whose presence? Presence of only Guru. Through you. You are to connect. You are to connect your student with his only teacher, with his soul. So, presence of your divinity within you. Presence of your divinity. And why he is called Guru? Why Guru is called Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara? That presence has to be felt. Presence. The power of presence. Presence of divinity within you. You have to be Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara. You have to be Pratibhu of Vishnu. You have to be Pratibhu of Brahma. That presence. And together these three things called Guruship. Then, 4 pillars of education. 4 pillars of education according to Indian knowledge system. First one is conviction. Second one is willingness. Third one is persistence. Fourth one is grace. But I am sure modern scientific mind will not recognize the impact of grace. But I am telling you one thing. Do you know? A fool in India was converted within a moment into a knowledgeable man. Who is that? Shukla knows. Shukla very much knows. Professor Shukla knows. He was a fool of highest extent. And he was immediately made a knowledgeable man. And now, entire world knows him. Who was that? Who was that being? It was Kalidasa. He was a fool. With the grace, he was immediately made a knowledgeable man. So, 4 things in Indian pedagogy. Number 1, conviction, willingness, persistence, grace. Then 3 elements of Indian knowledge system. 3 elements of Indian knowledge system. What are those 3 elements? The whole of Indian knowledge system can be summarized into 3 components. Whole of Indian knowledge system can be summarized into 3 characteristics. Number 1, I shall not be explaining. I'll only mention the component. First one is a methodized organization of life for the fulfillment of life. Life was paramount, not society, not nationalism. Life has to be fulfilled. Psychology of man, knowledge of man. I am here to fulfill my life. So that was the first, the secret behind all Indian pedagogy. Life has to be fulfilled. Life is paramount. A methodized organization of life. A methodized organization of life. Number 1. Number 2 component is integral knowledge. Integral knowledge. But why I am saying as integral knowledge? I could have said only knowledge. Because integral knowledge again consists of 3 components. That is why it is integral. Akhanda Jnanam, integral knowledge. Three components, specific, to be very specific. Number one is knowledge about self, knowledge about myself. Who am I? Who am I? I must know who am I, why I am here on this earth, what exactly I want to achieve on this earth. Who am I? That is the first component of integral knowledge, knowledge about self. And the second one is knowledge about world. Knowledge about world. That is to say, chemistry, physics, mathematics, biology, medical science, knowledge about world. And third one is knowledge about the ultimate truth. So these three things together call integral knowledge. Knowledge about the self, knowledge about the whole world, and knowledge about the ultimate reality. So these three things are knowledge, and that is why Maharishi says the education which confines only to knowledge is no education. Knowledge is one of the components, and that has to be integral knowledge. In Upanishad, it is said as in a different language. It is said as Paravidya and Aparavidya. Apara means in Sanskrit lower, para means higher, but it is nothing to do with inferior or superior. So Paravidya means science of matter. And Paravidya means science of consciousness, science of soul, science of self, science of the ultimate reality. And what is Aparavidya? Science of matter. Or you can say science of consciousness and science of matter. Or you can say spirituality and the science. Paravidya is the spirituality, science is the Aparavidya. So integral knowledge. India was focusing about integral knowledge, not one-sided knowledge like modern age. Modern age is concerned only with knowledge about world, physics, chemistry, mathematics, biology, anthropology, political science, economics. But India was aware of that knowledge means integral knowledge. Knowledge of the self, knowledge of the soul, knowledge of the consciousness. Number second, knowledge of the world. And third is knowledge about the ultimate reality, Brahma Vidya. And what is the third aspect? Expression of the powers and potentialities latent within the being. Expression of the powers and potentialities latent within being. These three things are at the base of Indian knowledge system. Methodized organization of life for the fulfillment of life. Second, integral knowledge. And third is expression of the powers and potentialities latent within the being. These three things comprises whole of Indian knowledge system. Then four aspects in Indian pedagogy. And these three aspects which Professor Shukla has said is the consequence of that four aspect. Why these three things are needed? Hearing, reflection, and the deep meditation. Why these three things are needed? Why? What is the fundamental behind? What is the secret behind that? To understand that thing, we need to understand four aspects of Indian pedagogy. What are those four components? First one is what UNESCO has said, that treasure within. Learning, treasure within. That in the heart of every thinking and living being, first component. You just focus on the word, in the heart of every thinking and living being. So I am not referring to animal. Animal is also living, but they are not thinking. So it is referring to human being. So first aspect of the four aspects. The heart of every thinking and living being, the first aspect. Second aspect, a growing bud of knowledge and perfection. So in the heart of every living and thinking being, there is a growing bud of what? Growing bud of knowledge and perfection. This is the second aspect. And what is the third aspect? The growing bud can be opened either swiftly or gradually. For evolutionary being like us, it opens gradually. But for chosen instrument like Kalidas, it opens swiftly. So this is the third aspect. And the fourth aspect is when the right word is heard. Because the bud is within, growing bud is within. Right word has to be heard. Right word has to be heard. And that is why in Sanskrit, so much focus on pronunciation. Why? Because the growing bud within has to be awakened. But Maharishi says, word can be from within as well as from outward. Outward by the professors and teachers like you, and from within, from my own soul, inbuilt soul. So both way can happen. But the right word, there must be a right word. But only hearing is not enough. Hearing has to be followed by reflection. Reflection has to be followed by by the deep meditation. That is to say, Sravana has to be followed by Manana. Manana has to be followed by Nididhyasana. Next, the 4 H's. Mahabharata says. Yes. Okay. With this, I'll be finishing. To accomplish in any endeavor, Mahabharata says we need 4 things. Whether it is arts, sculpture, architecture, music, physics, chemistry, mathematics, biology, we need 4 things according to Indian knowledge system. And this is specifically from the Mahabharata. I think it is verse number 46 of the Udduk Parva, if I am not wrong. First one is Shastra. But what is Shastra? Shastra is nothing but the principles and procedures which guides my realization. But again here, Maharishi explains, which is the Supreme Shastra. Where is the Supreme Shastra? Where is the Supreme Veda? Apart from 4 Vedas, there is an eternal Veda. And that Veda is within you. The external Vedas are the supports of the Sanatana Veda within me. And that is why UNESCO says, learning the treasure within. So first thing is Shastra. And second one is Guru. But who is the Supreme Guru? In Gita, in verse number 61, Krishna says, Ishvara sarvabhutanang hriddese arjuna tisthati. Sri Krishna says, I am there in your heart. I remove all your darkness. No external teacher. I remove all external all your darkness. All your darkness, I remove. But the external teachers are my representatives, are my pratibhu. They have to be my representatives. That is what is called initiation dikha. You are to introduce the soul of the Vidyarthi with him. This is your responsibility, because understanding has to take place from within. And the third one, not third, actually fourth, the kala, time. There is a time period. And we don't have control over time, kal. So out of 4, I have mentioned 3. Shastra, Guru, and the kala. But actual weapon, if the Shastra is within me, if the Supreme Guru is within me, if the kala is not under my control, then what teachers will do? The 4th aspect. What is that 4th aspect? It is the utsaho, encouragement. You are to encourage your student only. Whatever means. Everything will be done. Everything will be done by his own soul. You are to only inspire your student. You are to only encourage your student. So these are the 4 H's to accomplish in any endeavor. And last but not least, just 3 words. If you are asked, what is the Boydic vision? If you are asked, what is the pedagogy or the Boydic pedagogy, Boydic vision, you can answer it with only 3 words. And with that 3 words, with my extreme gratitude to all of you, I will conclude my speech. If you are asked, what is Boydic vision? Boydic vision can be summarized only in 3 words. Number 1 is seeking after the truth. Number 1 is seeking after the truth. But seeking after the truth is not sufficient, it is insufficient. After seeking, you have to realize the truth. You have to realize the truth. So first Boydic vision is seeking after the truth. And the second one is, you have to realize that truth. Even seeking and realizations together are not sufficient. Finally, you have to become that truth. You have to become that truth, and that is why Edgar Farr, the title of his education document was Learning to Be. Learning to be. We are here, we are born here to become. What become? Right now I am portion eternal. One day I will become Brahman. Right now I am Noro. One day I will become Narottam. And eventually I will become Narayan one day. And that is the meaning of Asatuma Sadgamaya, Tamasuma Jyotirgamaya, Mritturma Amritam Gamaya. Namaskar. Thank you.
We just heard an excellent exposition on an outline of our education system through the lens of Sri Aurobindo. It was a very, very fascinating lecture, and I'm sure Professor Sharma also could have continued much longer also, but because of the paucity of time, and also it's getting late, so we have to call it a day. And I'm sure his lecture is recorded properly also, and this will be made available to the participants in due course of time. And I'm also quite confident that his presentation has been very, very successful in provoking in us questions on the education system that we are actually with now. And in fact, big changes are happening, and these insights also will be of immense help in giving us a sense of direction in our new benches, So with these few words, I thank Professor Sharma again, and also I thank the participants who have taken who have been patient enough to sit through all the lectures from the beginning. And now I hand over the mic to the organizers for a vote of thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor E. Bijoy Kumar Singh, for chairing the session, and thank you, Sri Diganta Viswas Sharma, for sharing your deep philosophical insights of the Indian education system. And Before we officially conclude this enlightening technical session, I am glad to remind the special guests and invitees that we are having a cultural program at 7 p.m. in this very hall. Now I would like to invite Susmina Maisnam for a vote of thanks to conclude the session.
Everyone is tired, I guess. It has been an honor to be a part of this wonderful event. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed speakers and guests. I would like to take the opportunity to thank professors who had chaired today's technical sessions. I extend million thanks to the college principals, head of various departments, participants and volunteers. Without you, today's program would not be possible. The best thanks to all the organizing team and coordinator of this never-ending support. Finally, I would like to thank everyone who involved directly or indirectly helping to coordinate this event and supporting us. Thank you one and all.
Thank you so much. We can have a last question.
Oh, that's it. We are connected. Yes, connected. Oh, but yeah.
Sir, please join for last photo session, please.